FearScape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
FearScape Paranormal Podcast, part of the FearScape Media Network. Prepare to be spooked. New episodes every Wednesday on all major podcast platforms. Find out more at fearscapepodcast.com.
Thank you for tuning in to FearScape Paranormal Podcast. We are on a journey to understand and to discover the phenomena that seems to exist all around the globe. We invite you to join us on this journey into the unknown.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another fantastic episode of FearScape Paranormal Podcast here on the FearScape Media Network. I am your host, Stefan Josh, and I am elated to be joined by my co-host who never butters his toast, Mr. Josh Rutledge. How are you tonight, groovy sir?
I'm doing fantastic. And you know what? I don't like buttered toast because I put preserves on my toast. And I don't like the mixture of preserves and butter.
I love the mix, dude.
Plus, when you put butter on toast and then you put preserves on toast, they get like soggy, and then the middle falls through, and then you have jam.
No,
all over
you got to
lap.
eat it quick, Josh. You're taking your sweet time.
No, if you eat fast, then you get full really quick, and then 5 minutes later, you're like, man, I'm hungry again. So, yeah. anyways,
I don't know, you and your preserves. But anyways, yeah, thanks you. I'm elated, as I said, Mr. Rootledge.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. We got a really cool show tonight. We have the host of the UFO subreddit, Ben Lamprey. I am very excited. Created the origins of UAP infographic that grabbed our attention like nobody's business. I mean, this thing is epic. It is.
I mean, it is a read list if I've ever seen a read list before.
I mean, it's amazing, dude. I mean, he lists like books to go after to see where these concepts came from, whether they be interdimensional, whether they be extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, I mean, just this is insane. And it's I can't imagine the amount of work that it took. So I am very excited to pick his brain for sure. Please stick around for getting spooky with that man, because it's going to be, as the kids say, amaze balls.
Do the kids still say that?
I guess. I don't know. I don't hang out with kids.
Anybody out here who's a kid that's listening?
Do you say amaze balls?
Do you say amaze balls? I have
also
a feeling
awesome sauce.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing?
Or jackassery. Is that still a thing?
Ass jackery is a thing. Bass ackwards. That's always one of my favorites.
I feel like there's an opportunity here for us to take jackassery and make it Jersey Devilish.
Don't even get him started, dude. Don't even get him started.
Oh, I thought he's on vacation, right?
Yeah, but he left a baby monitor. Awkward. It's awkward. But anyway, so I want to go ahead and get moving on and get to our segments of the week here in a second. But before that, Josh, I wanted to talk a little bit about our Patreon. I know everyone who listens to podcasts, I'm sure you guys get tired of hearing this, but I know I support my favorite podcasts. I love true crime and paranormal podcasts. I love story-based ones. Tanis is one of my favorites. I support them. But we also need your support as well. We have a number of really cool tiers for our blanket huggers. Some of them have some free stuff, especially at the highest tier. There's some live Q&As. We actually have our first live Q&A for our patrons only coming out Wednesday, August 18th. That's correct, Josh?
Yep, that's right.
And what time's that bad boy happening? Is that
I don't remember. I think it was like 9
your time.
Yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern
Things
time.
get crazy with us being on the opposite sides of the country.
I know.
But yeah, that'll be there. I believe, 9 p.m. So that's 9, 8, 7, 6. So that's around 6 my time.
6 p.m. Pacific time. Or if you're in the UK, it's whatever 5 hours plus 9 is,
regardless. We're going to be talking about that. One of the big things we want to talk about is some of the stuff happening with wristwatch. And of course, there is a specific wristwatch tier. It's $9 a month. It's absolutely fantastic. It's we are really digging into all the emails that we get from the man claiming to be Terry Wrist, how far we've gotten in the journey and the clues that he's left us, me, you, Olav, and Santosh. It's really cool. And so the Q&A is going to be awesome.
I mean, I just put up the first kind of discussion that we had on a lot of things about a week ago. And I mean, I remember now, like went back when I was editing, and like we made some distinctions there between like the tall map and certain constellations. So there's some really interesting stuff. And whether or not, like I said, whether or not you know who Terry Wrist is or any association, there's still some great content that's happening there. Yeah,
and you'll be able to ask us anything about that, as well as ask us just about guests we've had on the show, or what size underwear I wear.
How did you guys meet? That kind of stuff. You know, what's a funny story about Stefan?
Yeah, but we'll be doing that monthly. Every, I believe, third Wednesday of the month, we'll be doing that.
Correct.
Yep. And so keep an eye open for that. But yeah, we've got tiers ranging from $1 to $15. We keep it pretty reasonable there for you. But that does help us produce this show, as well as travel and get into some creepy, cool stuff, and help us get some caliber guests as well. Yep. So please make sure to go to that. That's fearscapepodcast.com/support, or you can go straight to patreon.com/fearscapepod. Those are the two places that can help us out, and we love you guys for that. So, but anyways, like I said, got to get to the segments of the week, Josh. And the first one, I think you guys feel this in your brain already, but it's Psychic Word of the Week.
And now, the Psychic Word of the Week.
All right, Psychic Word of the Week comes from the Encyclopedic Psychic Dictionary by June G. Bletzer, PhD. Rest in peace, honey bear. I flipped through the pages, landed on page 597, and the phrase that I saw here was subjective psychic attack.
Interesting.
Yeah. So let's see. The first word says unpleasant. You're like, yeah, I kind of figured that.
Yeah,
kind of figured that with attack. But it says unpleasant, undesirable, negative mental activity that preoccupies one's time, depletes one's energy, and eats into the physical body. Abnormal activity for that person. Wow. So before we even get into the theories there, it almost sounds self-inflicted the way she kind of just referenced it there.
Yeah, it does.
Interesting. But I mean, negative mental energy too. You could be thinking about, I wish so-and-so was dead, right? I mean, that already is a subjective psychic.
Or it could just be worrying about a single topic and then spiraling out of control.
But yeah, I mean, you hear that a lot, anxiety and worry and stuff like that. It will eat your energy. So definitely agree with that. So here's the theories. 1, thoughts telepathically sent by a psychic with evil intent. So there we go. So that is a little more subjective there. 2, information surfacing from a past incarnation wherein the victim dealt in black magic.
Okay.
Though to me, 1 and 2 are pretty similar. I think they just don't realize that they were dealing in black magic, but it's okay. Number 3, negative vibrations entering the mind through a break in the etheric web. Ooh.
Okay.
Very interesting. And finally, number 4, evil forces drawn to the victim through his or her own volition by dwelling on emotions of hate, fear, resentment, and jealousy. Now, I know MR Gorga would probably say there's a perfect opening for possession there.
Well, so a couple things. So first one, I think you called out the first one and the second one are related, but I think they're different. So the first one is somebody is sending that negative energy to you, right? So I'm sending it to you in an attempt to derail you or whatever the case may be.
Right.
The second one is you dabbled in dark energy in a past life, and now that's come back to haunt you, right? So both. Nope. I thought that was the way I interpreted it.
No,
597 was the page.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess it is past incarnation. Okay. All right. I'll let that slide.
I was listening when you read. So, but anyways, I was going to say the first one though, would voodoo dolls fall into that?
Well, they do now that I've correctly figured out the understood there. I mean, because so then I guess number one could be if you're dealing in black magic in this life. So yeah, I mean, a voodoo doll is essentially black magic. I mean, voodoo is gray magic, so it can be dark or it can be light. But revenge and vengeance and all that is very accepted. So yeah, a voodoo doll could absolutely be considered a subjective psychic attack.
So I wonder if there's an objective psychic attack. I mean, because it's called out as subjective, I wonder if there's an objective.
I don't know. What's the objective there that you're trying to find, Josh?
I don't know. Well, I mean, what's the difference? What's the difference? Just straight up word definition. Subjective. It just means that you derive, I think, unknown meaning or something. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a walking dictionary.
So let's see here. So looking up this.
Yeah. So based on or influenced by personal feelings, taste, or opinions is the first entry.
Is subjective. And objective is not influenced by personal feelings.
Right.
So I guess.
So maybe if you had evidence that you were being attacked, that would be objective.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Like the first, so subjective is I feel like I'm being attacked, and here's some examples of when it could happen, versus I know I'm being attacked, and here's some evidence. Then those would be objective.
Sure, I mean, because objective is essentially what judges need to be. They need to be objective and impartial. So
yeah,
you try to follow a set of rules when you're doing so. You know what I mean? It's like they broke the law.
Yeah, I mean, it comes up a lot in UFO stuff, right? There's subjective is I see a light in the sky. I think it might be a UFO. Objective is I see a light in the sky. I've rolled out everything that we know it could be. Oh, and also I saw a Bigfoot sighting and smelled a foul smell. So I have correlating evidence, blah, 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 blah. So that's the difference.
Right.
Anyways.
But yeah, thank you, June G. Blitzer, and thank you, Josh. That was a very objective viewpoint there.
Well, thank you.
Studious. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next segment, which is spooky news. And I got a dark one, man. So, man, I even questioned whether or not I was going to cover this because it's messed up. Like, this is real life here. Okay. But
is it paranormal though? I mean,
it is. It is. And you'll see why. So the headline from the New York Post, this was just a week or two ago, says vampire confesses to murdering 10 kids and drinking some of the victims' blood. Yeah.
Okay.
That's where we're at. The article reads, a Kenyan man described by authorities as a bloodthirsty vampire has confessed to the grisly slayings of 10 children, in some cases sucking their blood before killing them, police said. And I'll tell you right now, I know in 2 years we're going to have a true crime podcast. Somebody's going to be covering this because this is, we need to tell the Ghosts in the Attic Bodies in the Basement girls cover this because this is insane. Mastin Malimo Wanjala, 20 years old, was arrested Wednesday in connection to the killings of 2 children whose bodies were found in a wooded area of the capital, Nairobi, the country's Directorate of Criminal Investigation said on Wednesday. But in a disturbing confession, Wanjala admitted to the cold-blooded murders of at least 10 young teens. In a nerve-wracking blow-by-blow account, the murderer recounted harrowing details of how he lured victims to his killer's jaws before squeezing the life out of the innocent children. Authorities said he was a bloodthirsty vampire who targeted children between the ages of 12 and 13. And I'm looking at this picture and he just looks like a regular dude. I mean, he looks like your average Kenyan guy. He's wearing his Umbro soccer uniform of his favorite team. He's just a dude, but he's covered in blood. That's what's kind of old dried blood. I mean, that's where he was at because he got caught in the act. But he says he allegedly drugged his victims with a white substance in powder or liquid form, and then he drained their blood before killing them. The police wrote on Twitter that Wanjala single-handedly massacred his victims in the most callous manner, sometimes through sucking blood from their veins before executing them. The killing spree allegedly began 5 years ago with a 12-year-old girl he kidnapped in Machakos County, east of Nairobi, police said. At least some of the victims died by strangulation, and several of their bodies have not been found yet. The murderer is unapologetic over his actions, and he told detectives that he derived a lot of pleasure from killing them. As detectives pursue crucial leads to the recovery of the rest of the bodies, it is our belief that the criminal justice system will serve justice to the innocent souls and relieve the hearts of the mourning parents, siblings, and Kenyans in general, the police said.
Yeah, so I don't even know what to follow this with. So maybe we just have maybe a moment of silence.
I told you it was dark, man.
And then we'll jump into the next thing. So let's just pause for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, palate cleanser.
Yeah, palate cleanser. But yeah, just, this is not the first case of someone thinking they're a vampire or pretending to be a vampire or whatnot. I mean, this is a pretty fresh article, so there's nothing that goes into his mental state or anything like that of whether he really thought he was a vampire or was had some mental issues, or if he was, playing or what.
All the above. So.
But the Nairobi News called him the face of evil. And like I said, it's weird because he just looks like a regular dude. You know what I mean?
Most people like that kind of do just look. I mean, most people who do that kind of shit just look like regular people. And that's what's so scary about it, is because some dude moves in next door and you really don't know.
Nope.
You really don't know. So
he could be Stefan's co-host on FearScape. You don't even know.
You don't even know.
You don't even know.
You get like when he's walking out to the curb to put his garbage out, just stop and say, "Hey, man, how you doing?"
Yeah, how you doing? He could be a Wayshu guy, or thinks he's a Wayshu guy.
Yeah,
or doesn't have to be a vampire. Yeah, there's a lot of there's I don't know, messed up. Anyways, that's my spooky news because it was super spooky. Kind of messed up. And this is one of those where I'm like, glad this is on the other side of the world, even though this shit happens here too.
This shit happens everywhere. They just don't report about it here.
I wouldn't even have covered it if it wouldn't have been the vampire stuff, man. But whoo-wee, deputy dog. That's all I'm saying. So, let's go ahead and move to our next segment before we get to our getting spooky here with our boy. Let's go ahead and move into the UFO sighting of the week. All right, Josh, UFO, UAP sighting of the week. What do we got here? Where are you pulling it from this week?
So this comes from New Fork, and this happened all the way back in May 15th, 2020.
Day after my birthday.
And it happened in Calgary, Canada. So here we go.
We were in the backyard, and a large triangle-shaped object flew silently past us at 500 feet. It was coming from the west, heading east. It had 4 dim lights on either side, and one at the front. All lights were white. It was a clear night, and the object was clearly visible.
Yeah. So short, but short and sweet. Yeah. So,
just like Stefan Josh.
Yep. And Jersey Devil, I think, probably too. But anyways, so
he's tiny and tangy.
So it says here that it happened, or the sighting occurred around 10 o'clock p.m. local time in Calgary. So
in Calgary, yeah. There's
I mean,
a lot of famous wrestlers from Calgary, I'll tell you.
So I mean, it happened, at night, clear night, so like clearly, clear night, clearly see it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's good stuff. I've seen a lot of things with my night vision that could or could not be things. Nothing like the night, that thing we saw the night in my backyard. Nothing
Right.
nothing like that sense for me. So I mean, other than the weird thing that I saw out in the Arizona desert with my wife, but where it like just totally changed directions and shot off the other way. But I'm just, I'm looking forward to seeing that kind of stuff again. So I'm excited to get out to Arizona.
Don't cry.
Oh, I'm not crying. I'm happy.
Sure.
These are tears
There's no
of joy.
crying in baseball.
These are tears of joy.
They are. Yeah, I'm excited too. It's been so hot, I don't even want to go outside at night. So I haven't really taken a look at the sky in a while. And I'm really excited for November for when my sister Kelly is coming to visit again, because we're going to go get a cabin out in the middle of Prescott National Forest again, where I took all those great starfield photos. So I'm excited to be out there again.
Yep.
And just, I mean, I could see the Milky Way, everything. So super excited about that.
You can actually see it now, by the way, wherever you are. If you go out, you can see, for the most part, you can see one of the, what's it called? The arms, the arms that comes around.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're seeing now. I went out and tried to take some starfield photos to try to get the arm, and you can see it a little bit, but not as well as you can see it with like the eye on a really nice clear night.
The Arizona kind of southwest area, I forget, I just saw it the other day, but has a meteor shower that they'll be able to see soon. I think I don't know what the date is, sometime in early August. We may have missed it already, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that'd be pretty cool. If I have a chance, I might drive out to a pretty darker area and see what I could see. So, but anyways, let's go ahead and move on, and let's go ahead and jump into our Getting Spooky here with Ben Lamprey, aka Berlinghoff Strugensmuger. That's not right. What is it?
Berlinghoff Rasmussen.
Let's do that again. So let's go ahead and get into Getting Spooky with Ben Lamprey. Hey there, blanket huggers. Stefan here from FearScape Paranormal Podcast. Got some good news for you. If you want to join in on the investigation of the mystery of the recent emails from the man claiming to be Terry Wrist to Josh and myself, aka the Spooky Crew, and his advice on where to look for more high strangeness, or if you simply want to become a patron blanket hugger for some cool swag and behind the scenes goodness, go ahead and join our Patreon at fearscapepodcast.com/support or patreon.com/fearscapepod. There you can get Riskwatch access to the Terry emails themselves, the WhatsApp conversation about it all with Josh, Stefan, Santosh, and Olaf Phillips, and even any clues that are new that we have found in other Fearscape related bonus content. You can even help out and add anything that you have found to help us dive deeper into the mystery. And remember, you can also just be a normal blanket hugger, as there are a few non-wristwatch tiers for patrons not interested in Terry Wrist and that journey. You'll still have access to bonus interviews, articles, and live Patreon-only Q&As, as well as early access and discounted tickets to events put on by Fearscape, such as psychic events, tarot readings, etc. Or you can simply support however you feel comfortable, with tiers as low as $1. So join today. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys for sticking around after the break. As promised, we have Ben Lamprey here, the UFO Reddit, UFOs. What an amazing guy. And we already talked about your infographic, Ben, so no pressure. But thank you for coming on to Fearscape and taking your time with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to have an opportunity to talk to you guys and to talk more about UFO books, because
dude,
that's a big thing for me.
That's a big thing for us.
Yeah, it's a. I mean, for real, that it is a reading list. I mean, it's like anybody who wants to know the subject should just get the infographic and just start checking things off the list that you read.
And most of our listeners know we have shared this infographic a number of times on our Facebook page and Twitter and things like that. And we will absolutely be sharing it again this week to look out there. But yeah, I mean, Josh and I wrote down every book we hadn't heard of or read yet.
It was a labor of love for me. I love a bunch of those books. There's a few stinkers on there too, I'm sure.
Yeah, but the cool thing is it gives us the idea of where, these ideas come from, or at least what they're all about. And that's what I found interesting, because so many folks, and this, not only in the paranormal field but in the UFO field, they're very subjective. They're very, let's focus on this branch of it. I mean, look at the difference between Lou Elizondo and Stephen Greer, right? You've got two very different folks. When then people like us, we're like, well, it's kind of all these things, right? Or could be. Let's take a look at all of that. So that's why I found it interesting, and I know Josh did as well.
Marvel that can sit next to each other in UFO conventions, and seemingly, people with completely different viewpoints go up on stage, and then the next person will go up, and there's no real conflict. It's kind of an amazing thing about our community that we can embrace that kind of diversity of opinion.
Yeah, and that's a big change from where it was. We're good friends with Alan Greenfield, and back in the day, back in his early days, he ran the zine UFO Cider, and with Jim Mosley and a bunch of those guys, and he knew Gray Barker and them, and then he talked about how there was such a huge fight essentially between them, because they were all about contactees and things like that, and then the other community, it's not UNICEF, but whatever the MUFON was back in those days, I can't remember. NICAP. NICAP kept trying to shut them down, because they were like, we need to stop talking about contactees, it's making us look bad, and they were all just against it, and there was just this secret Cold War, especially with, you got Gray Barker and Jim Mosley playing pranks on the NICAP offices. God, just stuff like that, because it was such a huge division at that time.
And abductees were like the electric third rail.
Yeah.
I mean, people did not want to touch that subject.
Well, and I mean,
not at all.
I think a lot of people in the general UFO community, though, are trying to think how to put this. There are a lot of people, the hardcore folks in ufology, are looking for objective evidence to prove their case, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And contactee and abductee is very much a subjective topic, because most contactees and abductees don't come back with a glowing rod from the spaceship or whatever that they were taken to. And so in the mind of most of those hardcore folks in ufology, they'll never be able to prove any of that stuff. So there's no point in even having a conversation or taking them at all seriously, even though a lot of them, have gone through hypnosis and so on and so forth, and have produced all kinds of amazing results. So,
well, that kind of, makes me think about Robert Hastings. I don't know if you guys are familiar with his work. He wrote UFOs and Nukes.
Yeah.
And was for a long time really like Mr. Nuts and Bolts. You couldn't get more serious or more academic in terms of his research tone. And then about a year ago, he released a book called Confession, and revealed that he'd had a bunch of abduction or contact experiences that have been going on for decades. And it's a great kind of view into how someone can present themselves as nuts and bolts, can try to work within a nuts and bolts framework, while at the same time their own life is anything but. People are complicated.
100%. Yeah. I mean, John Mack's another one who went into it, who just wanted to look at the psychology of how people feel they have abductions and things like that, and then became, as Stan Lee would say, a true believer, himself, and then had experiences and the like and things like that. It's fascinating to me.
John Mack had a lot to lose.
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we talked to Ralph Blumenthal.
He lost a lot.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. And he lost a lot, too. I mean,
that hate campaign on him that ruined his career, everything. It's
he must have been a very passionate guy. And I can't remember, is it the Ariel case where he went down and did the interviews, or the Westfall case?
I'm not sure exactly.
He went to one of the school sightings.
It was the one in South Africa, wasn't it?
I think that's Ariel.
Okay.
But so I can imagine, meeting with 40 kids or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's got to be a transformative experience.
Oh, it has to. I mean, anytime that you meet a group of folks, let alone kids or adults, that are all passionate about seeing something, how can you stand back and go, group hysteria, y'all?
Well, and in the fact that he put all 40 kids right in separate spaces and said, "Hey, draw what you saw,"
right.
and all of them drew similar things. I mean, they didn't draw the same thing, which means they didn't think about it and plan. Okay, guys, let's all make sure the spaceship has 8 windows, but they all drew similar things, which means again, it's kind of evidence that those things actually happened. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I think the school administration separated the kids pretty quickly and asked them to draw what they do. I think it was actually pretty good conduct, better than what you'd expect from a shell-shocked school principal. They did a good job.
And it's interesting to me because, like, anytime anyone says group hysteria, it's funny to me when they mention that, because group hysteria to me is a shared psychic connection, right? So it's like on one hand you're saying this stuff is fake, but on the other hand you're saying that psychic gifts are real, because I bet you're going to refute that one too. Because I think we actually have a lot of good experience dealing with other people's beliefs that we disagree with. And most of that experience is in the religion field, right? Right.
Because part of having a religious belief for most people is thinking other people's religious beliefs are in part wrong.
Right.
And we've figured out how we can get along as a society despite having those really big differences on our beliefs as to the nature of the universe. Surely we can get along while we argue about what the lights in the sky are. I think though that it's very interesting, and like Stefan was talking about before, how many people have come down on kind of what they think the lights in the sky are, right? So they, I am nuts and bolts. I know for sure that they are, animals, or I know for sure that they are actual living beings, or I know, so on. But, Stefan and I are constantly, what if it's this? What if it's that? Because until somebody can prove that it's one thing, and also I'll say that we talk about this a lot too, it may be all those things, right? Sure.
It doesn't have to be just one. So I think sometimes the community does itself a disjustice by so many people settling on looking at it from one angle as opposed to looking at it from all angles.
I think looking at it in terms of probabilities is useful. So, if you think about, like, if I took one case, just a random case, you don't know anything about it other than that it's interesting, it's not, a seagull or something.
Right.
What would you think the percent chance is that would be something from that would go under the extraterrestrial hypothesis? Or what is the percent chance that you think that would go under the interdimensional hypothesis? And we can kind of look at people's kind of base rates of belief and determine a lot about kind of their bias.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
I mean, it was something that I think is only recently, it was there several years ago, 70 plus years ago, and it's recently started to resurface, is the idea that a lot of these things are already here and have been for a long time. And so maybe it's not, it's necessarily extraterrestrial, interdimensional, but it's maybe what we sometimes the terminology is used as ultra terrestrial, or I think I'm trying to remember, Chris Mellon used the term the other day, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was, but it was something along those lines, is that it was already here. Maybe they were extraterrestrials 1,000 years ago, but they've been here that long. Do you still classify them as extraterrestrial? So
Yeah, and I think those are really good points. And I'm actually glad to have someone like Chris Mellon talking about that stuff and using these terms that I think to a lot of people are kind of silly. When to us, they're very important. They have a lot of meaning. Yep. And, we know what the other people are talking about. When you said ultra-terrestrial, I'm thinking of John Keel.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I'm thinking about kind of the different mechanisms people have proposed whereby there might be ultra-terrestrials around us. And it sure seems like a possibility. It sure seems like something I wouldn't rule out. And I think it's worth developing a vocabulary to have that discussion.
One of the things that very occupies my thoughts a lot is the Shaver mystery. Mm-hmm. And we know, and we've talked about it on the show. We did a whole show talking about the Shaver mystery. We know that a lot of what was published in the Shaver mystery was written by Ray Palmer. Okay. But at the very core of it, Richard, or is it Richard Saver?
Yeah, it's Richard Saver.
Richard Saver. His experience was that he had these, he saw Lumeria and he saw, the Darrow and the Tarot, and they were fighting amongst each other, and it was eons ago, and they're, they're living in underground and subterranean cities, and it's all related somehow to Atlantis and things like that. So it's just, all of that mystery is so much discounted because of the fact that Ray Palmer wrote a lot of it to fill in.
And Ray Palmer is the editor of
Amazing Stories.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And so that's the like, because his publisher said, hey, if we're gonna publish this, we need to spice it up. And so Palmer was like, I got this. And so spiced it up to kind of fit the sci-fi of the time. And trust me, Josh and I have done some investigative crap here trying to find the original manuscript, and have not. Like, the Shaver family does not have a copy of it. Palmer, as far as we know, his family doesn't have a copy. We don't know. It's out there. We know it's out there, but it's like, so we don't know what the original text is. Like, what is it that Shaver said that he heard when he was welding? What is the full story that's untouched by Palmer? And that's what I want to find.
Yeah, but doesn't that, kind of bring up the question of, like, how are we supposed to assess these beliefs where we have no evidence and we have only people's testimony that personally I give a lot of weight to, right? But how do we do that, and how do we do that as a community?
Well, and I think the problem, in my opinion, this is my sole opinion, but I think the problem is that everybody's looking up instead of looking down. When we go out as a community and we go to UFO watch, we're all staring at the sky.
Sure.
Nobody is exploring. Not nobody. Sorry. Some people, but the vast majority are not exploring caves. They're not looking. How many people go out on a boat in the middle of the ocean at night and see what comes and goes out of the water?
Sure.
It's
like,
just
specifically looking for that.
Right.
I think those UAPX guys are doing that right now. That's my guess anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm really interested in what kind of results they get.
Me too.
Yeah,
but we know
we know 1% we've mapped of the world's oceans.
Right.
1%.
So,
we have whole uncharted frontiers right here. But I think a lot of these beliefs are coming back around. I think, Tom DeLonge has been a big advocate for Atlantis. Mm-hmm. It's such a bizarre thing that he's really stuck on. But you can see that whole TTSA group is kind of premised on this idea of ultra-terrestrials.
Yep.
You can see, Hal Puthoff wrote a paper on it. And Lou Elizondo just tiptoes around the idea without ever really making any strong statement.
Yeah, I think I think he has to be that face. And that's why when they broke officially from To the Stars, it's interesting to see how Mellon's tone changed. That's the one thing that I have loved following him on Twitter, because this new narrative that he has he kind of stayed away from as well, even during Unidentified and things like that. But now that like him and Lou have broken away, it's like they're both hitting both sides. Like Lou's playing the governmental military face, and Mellon's like, hey, this could be some shit underground. You know, we don't, and I'm loving it. I love it.
In 5 years ago, something like that, Mellon said he didn't think there was a cover up.
Mm-hmm.
He has completely changed his tune. Now that he's, like you said, left the nest or whatever.
Yeah.
He's a fascinating guy.
Yeah. And I totally would have never thought that, but he is, especially this year, I've just been watching him like a hawk.
There's
I don't know if you guys were familiar with the Senate Select Intelligence Committee.
Oh yeah.
I really think Mellon's proposal actually had a big effect on the legislation that was written last year. And well, that's a first for UFO people, right? I mean,
yeah.
Have we ever actually changed the law or changed legislation in a way to encourage disclosure?
Oh, I know. And you always talk about credible. It's like Lou just kind of seems angry that he got fired, right? Like that's Lou's thing. But Mellon, you're like, yeah, I didn't invite him over. Like he seems to me the most credible, like that I think fits.
He certainly owns the best
suits. Yeah.
Well, there's a special.
I think he is pretty credible.
Yeah.
There's a special that was on TMZ did it. It was on Hulu. It's on Hulu now. I don't know if either one of you watched it, but there's a part in there where they're talking to Christopher Mellon, and the interviewer is saying, "Hey, you're a Mellon. Like, you don't need any of this. You don't need money. You don't need fame. Like, why are you doing this?" And Chris basically says, "Because it's the right thing to do."
Yeah.
And I mean, that's right there. That's character, right? And it's and I think Chris has a lot of character, and he sees that, either he knows or he has a really good belief that he knows, right? That really good informed information that directs him to, that he feels like the people have a right to know.
Yeah.
And I think again, the one thing that I'll say about all of this stuff that's going on with Elizondo is the Pentagon never came after Mellon, right? They went after Lou. And either that's because Lou has more information to share, right? Or so they need to shoot down his credibility more. But I think it's interesting that they never went after Mellon. They only went after Lou. So,
well, I always think about whether or not Elizondo, we should think of him as a whistleblower. Right. I mean, is he doing this within the purview of his old authority, or is he really effectively bucking authority by talking to us about this?
Yeah. Well,
and when you look back at Philip Corso,
mm-hmm.
or whistleblowers from that era, Gary McKinnon, those people were not given very much respect. They were not, really listened to. I wonder what would happen if Phil Corso came out today and told us his story of, releasing technology from crash retrievals to private companies. Would people maybe listen to him a little more?
One of the things that we've talked about, and I've kicked around and still do kick around, is Lou, Mellon, TTSA, is all this stuff planned? Is this a way of official disclosure without it being official disclosure? Are we as a people more apt to believe a quote unquote whistleblower than we would the actual government saying the same thing? And so was all this planned 3 years ago with the article in the New York Times, and then everything that's happened since then has been, this is our method of disclosure. We're just gonna make it appear like we're fighting against it so that the people are more likely to believe what it is.
Well, it comes back to Tom DeLonge, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah.
If we go back to his interviews from a few years ago, boy, he lays it out. He says that he pitched this idea to people in the DOD as almost a propaganda effort, as, hey, we can release this information in a way that makes you look good. Stop holding on to this because you think it makes you look bad. We'll make you look good. And so we're stuck with Delange, apparently telling us it is planned, and that was part of the intention. Whereas the later stuff from TTSA, makes it seem like that's not the case at all.
Well, but in their investor report that came out, I can't remember where it was, but somebody attended the investor report, which bravo, because that means you paid at least $750 to buy a share of stock. But somebody went to the investor and then recorded the whole thing and then converted it to document form. And I read through there, and according to them, there's a lot of film, a lot of documentaries in the TTSA wheelhouse that's coming in the next couple of years that are supposed to be shedding a lot of light on things. And so I'm thinking, is this all just part of the plan of the slow trickle out exposure or disclosure? And something we've talked about a lot in the past is the advent or ramp up, if you will, of a lot of alien type movies and TV shows and such. Is this all to desensitize us?
Well, it would be nice to know, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Sure the hell would.
But
so
you do hear anecdotes like about close encounters of the third kind, and Spielberg being in discussion with authorities as he's filming that or afterwards. And I wonder, I would love to know, guys.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I'm tired of theorizing, man.
Yeah.
I'm ready to.
Right.
What was the group, the Secret Nine? Am I saying that right? Wrong?
just the Nine. I thought they were just called
the Nine.
That Roddenberry was supposed to be a part
of.
Roddenberry
was a part of. Yeah, and that was why he did all his stuff. Yeah.
What a fun channeling session those guys had. That is like an incredible amount of material. I think is that the Law of One stuff? That's the Nine.
Then it's still so hard to find information on all of that.
You can actually find more information about the Majestic 12 than you can about the Nine. So
yeah. Well, for a while, do you guys know Esalen Institute out here in California?
The name sounds familiar, but
so it's like a New Age institute on the coast near Monterey. And it got very wrapped up in New Age philosophy in the late 60s, early 70s. And there was a while where supposedly, according to their own communications, the people running the Esalen Institute were the Nine.
Oh.
It was the actual Nine was communicating with the staff of the Esalen Institute about, things like personnel issues and stuff. And boy, does that make you wonder, well, just how much are these people just expressing their own thoughts and attributing them to this channeled experience?
Yeah.
But Esalen, if you guys aren't familiar with that, you should definitely check it out.
I just wrote it down. I'm in.
As featured in the final episode of Mad Men. Yeah.
Okay.
It's very interesting. But it's like, if you see a community that can believe something so much that they're literally letting the decisions be made by entities that they have no way of proving even exist. That's a strong belief.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think, I don't want to get too far down this particular rabbit hole, but I think that we as a people have somehow ingrained in us this want or need to have a deep belief system that's rooted in something.
Sure.
Right. We as a people rarely just have a belief system that we humans are capable of doing and achieving everything that we need to. We want to put our faith in something else to be able to help us or to guide us, or
science,
whatever it is. Yeah. But we rarely just put all of our belief in humanity is the savior, so to speak.
No, we externalize that. And what are people externalizing that as now? Perhaps as UFOs.
Yeah.
Or That doesn't mean that UFOs don't exist. It doesn't mean that they're not right.
Right.
I mean,
But it does mean we have this tendency to like take our beliefs and attribute them to somebody else. And I think that, if you think about contactee accounts and abductee accounts, so many of them were about nuclear weapons.
Oh, yeah.
In the 50s and the 60s.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But somehow the aliens got a lot more concerned about climate change as humanity learned about climate change.
Right. I mean, even so, like Stephen Greer, I mean, we joke about it all the time, but I mean, his movement is slowly starting to feel like a cult or a religion as well, because the more and more he sees these entities and sees these things, the more and more he talks about hope and salvation and things like that. And I'm like, man, you're starting to sound like a cult here.
Well, the thing is, Stephen Greer is making claims that we should be able to prove or disprove, right? I mean, he's claiming that CE5 works and that objectively he can go out and make contact with something and it will show up.
Yep, every time.
Yeah, and we've had a string of people go along to his events and confirm that.
Yep, and I would love to go, but I don't have $3,000. I can't.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's 10,000 if you want to go with Steven. So
right.
10,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's got some amazing pictures though, right?
He does.
That have been captured during his events, and I don't, that one that looks like a flying pink dude up in the sky. I mean, I don't know how you would fake that. Like, how does a dust particle cause that behavior? It's not a light flare, it's not a lens flare. It's just
it's tough to know, isn't it? Did you guys see the footage that Bigelow released a couple of years back of an orb inside one of their offices?
Yeah,
I haven't seen that.
Okay, it's both very interesting because it's released by Bigelow, and also incredibly anticlimactic because it looks like a dust mote. But Bigelow clearly believes this is an orb.
Oh
yeah, a bunch of people do. And just looking at that video, there's no way to know. And it's the same with contactees like Dorothy Izat.
Yeah.
You guys familiar with her?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah, she's great, right?
Her movies. Right.
I mean, I would love to, years ago, I would have loved to go out for a beer with Dorothy Izat. She seems completely charming.
That doc on her is incredible. You just fall in love with her so much.
They do a really good job of making her just incredibly endearing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys read the book about her too, it's also just
not yet.
Astounding.
Is on my list because I've
got it. I just haven't read it yet.
So. Well, the second half is a bunch of stuff in Dorothy Izat's own words. And and she has quite a bit about being reincarnated from her past life as an Atlantean princess. And that does not make it into the film, obviously.
I can see why, even though I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, but there's like these two sets of belief that are in tandem here.
Yep,
one of them is like, there's lights in the sky, something's up. And the other one is, how am I going to interpret that? And the interpretation just seems to be completely subjective to the individual. And I think that's when we're looking at those interpretations, I feel like we're learning more about ourselves than we are really about any phenomenon.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that, and I'm going to pause at this question, do you think that for everybody who thinks it's nuts and bolts that we're seeing, if it were proven to be energy beings, let's say that they were all energy beings, do you think the people who are diehard nuts and bolts would accept that they're energy beings, or would they still push back and say no, they've got to be diehard, they've got to be nuts and bolts? We're only seeing the energy envelope that's created by the nuts and bolts craft. Or, do you think people would accept, if given 100% proof, one specific way, or do you think they would constantly still need to question their own specific belief system?
I think that the answer to that is before us every day, that people deny reality no matter what evidence is in front of them. And if we did have that evidence, for energy beings, I think a lot of people would deny that. I mean, I would just kind of assume that they would. because it would require a real paradigm shift to accept something like that. And I think it would be natural to deny it. But I think we have things that we do have really good evidence for that people still deny.
Oh, yeah.
Like the connection, I know I've said this a couple times, but like the connection between UFOs and nukes that has been very prevalent in the late 20th century. We have really pretty strong evidence for that. Not one incident, but dozens.
Even Greer's panel that he put together at the press club. They spoke a lot about the interest between UFOs and nuclear weapons.
Yeah, I still agree with a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, and young Greer, wow, what a guy.
Mm-hmm.
That National Press Club thing he did is really outstanding. And I think, for me, that was one of the earliest things I saw that really gave me pause and made me reconsider my own assumptions about what was happening.
Yeah.
And it's a shame he's now,
Well, and I think a lot of that is, though, that, his sickness that he went through and then losing his best friend and losing his wife to the same thing. And now he feels somehow that he was the target of an attack for silencing. And so it's I think it's
that
shifted.
Paranoia can wear you down.
Yeah. Can, and it can do a lot of crazy things to you in your life. So, yeah. There's, we came back from Point Pleasant, doing stuff in the TNT domes out in Point Pleasant. And when we came back for like the next week and a half, we were paranoid that things were happening. So
weird stuff. We're like,
phones and computers would glitch and you would hear noises.
We are so capable of finding those patterns and attributing meaning to them. And we don't really know that there isn't meaning.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
We're kind of stuck on that. But I too have at different moments convinced myself that things that are, pretty ludicrous might be happening to me. I think that's part of just the human experience.
Yeah.
Well, we joke that, that's it's time to get our aluminum foil hats on. And then we joked and created a secret society called the Aluminum Naughty.
Anybody who's interested in this is gonna, feel a little embarrassed sometimes, right? And I think we're getting past that. And I think, hopefully at some point we can talk about this without that stigma.
Yeah. I think, the fact that it's being covered on most, kind of national media outlets, and even international, because there's, being covered around the world.
Yeah.
But how things go, right, in the big mainstream media, it's not going to last. Some other big thing will come along that'll overshadow, because as long as it's not getting the ratings, they're not going to continue to cover it. But the
difference is, Josh, and I think we've talked about this, with social media, the internet, and the way we are also interconnected, it doesn't get swept under the rug like it used to.
Yeah.
It's like when a new big news story showed up, yes, they all got swept under the rug because that was the only place you could find that stuff was on your TV or in your newspaper. Maybe you had a library that had some of these books, but you probably really didn't.
Or you had a photocopy of, Alan Greenfield's design, right?
Right, exactly. But now
the internet's great.
Yeah, I could just Google this or go to the Reddit. There's just so much information now, and that's one of the interesting things is that there is Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Z. They are so open to this, like it isn't anybody's business. They are so open to this because not like the boomers who lived very much through the taboo phase. Though to us who look back, we're like, it was an amazing time for ufology.
Yeah.
It was also the huge time for disinformation and making it seem loony. And things like that. Whereas now you got a lot more people that are very open to believe. And I just find that fascinating. I think that changes everything.
I do think the mainstream media stuff has a really big impact. And we saw that in the forum I moderate on Reddit after the 60 Minutes piece on UFOs.
Yep.
the traffic went up like 400%.
Oh,
Wow.
For like a good week. And that's, remarkable. I mean, we're talking about a forum with hundreds of thousands of people on it. But one episode of 60 Minutes, one segment of one episode, seemingly drove public conversation more than all the shouting in the caves we do.
The Sunday morning, like that's a show that my uncle was like, well, you have my ear now, because he saw the Sunday morning piece on it, right? Like,
well, and you've got, Showtime is coming out with their special docuseries. It's going to be UFO stuff. Discovery Plus has their shows that like UFO Witness and things like that that are still coming. There's some new shows that are coming down the pipe for, I think, going to be on Discovery Plus and Hulu. So I mean, there's, even though Fox News or CNN or MSNBC or whatever is probably going to stop talking about it, still the places where people go, HBO Max and Showtime and all these streaming services, are going to have things, and they're going to put them on the main page. Hey, you want to watch this?
Just like the new Unsolved Mystery, that first season, they had the Burke. I think it was the Burke.
Oh yeah. I saw that episode. It was great.
I'm already a UFO believer, and I knew that story, but I was fascinated by doing these hour-long Unsolved Mysteries, and that episode I read on a Reddit board, people were just mind blown by that episode. Well,
I tuned in for it. I'm sure it got good ratings.
Yeah, it was good. It was really good.
But to go back to TTSA for a moment, I was they're going to put out in the future. I'm very interested in. They made an announcement that they were going to put out a show involving the Dakota. And I just have in this picture in my head that they are going to go into a very woo place and bring us all, into these belief systems that we're not familiar with, but in which, this kind of contact is more normalized.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are concerned that TTSA is going to do 10 more docs that cover the same stuff they've been covering. And honestly, I'm a little concerned that that's all it's going to be. Complete repetition with
Greer's
just a new
docs.
spin.
They're just the same kind of reiterated stuff. But the sad news is I wish he would stop putting down Lou and those guys, because there's a chance to work together and find this merge. If you just shut up for a second, Stephen, and listen to what Mellon and those guys are actually saying, there's an opportunity here. But you talk about disinformation, and I really like Stephen Greer, but I mean, he is trying to tear them down. Yeah. And I don't need to do that.
Seems to be personality based and not really based on the facts on the ground.
It feels like a high school, like student government association, vote.
It's weird. He did it's been about a month ago, maybe, he did a special live on YouTube where he talked about the fact that his lawyer was representing Lou Elizondo in the whole defamation case against the Pentagon. Right. And he was saying, like, he's helping him out, but if we ever feel like Lou's just, trying to go back to the whole threat thing, then we're going to stop helping him. And it's just, I just thought that was really interesting, that it's almost like Greer was trying to save face for helping the enemy. Yeah. When it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, I also think that the reason why his newest doc, the one they gave out to free to everyone, got delayed is because I think he anticipated what was really going to happen with the government release there, and thought it was going to be way more dark than it was, and had to change that because it didn't happen like that. They were actually saying, hey, we don't know what most of this is, and blah, 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 blah. And so I think he had to go, oh, crap, guys, we got to go back and change this. We really thought it was going to be about the military and threat and blah, 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 and it didn't turn out to be.
No, it sure didn't. But Danny Sheehan, when Elizondo hired Danny Sheehan, that honestly changed my perception quite a bit.
Oh, 100%.
Because if you are, trying to commit fraud or pull something fast, you don't go out and hire a lawyer in the middle of it. You don't file, Inspector General complaints. Those are serious actions that lend me to think that Elizondo is his heart is in this.
Yeah. Well, so two things I'll say is, one is I really am surprised that no one in the mainstream media has given Greer an opportunity to tell his side of his opinion on things. So, everything that's been covered has been very much from Lou Elizondo and Mellon and so on and so forth. And nobody has given Greer a single iota of time to be able to come on and talk about, hey,
yeah,
here's another way to look at this. And either it's because they think Greer is woohoo or whatever, or whatever it is. But I mean, if you really want to drum up ratings, bring an opposing opinion on, get those two guys on the call together and let them go at each other. I mean, talk about ratings boosters.
The thing is that some of Greer's most kind of astounding claims, the people involved have said were inaccurate. Like, I know, Greer claimed to have briefed some official in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I can't remember who it was, but that official and his wife put out a statement and was like, no, he didn't brief us. He was at our house for a dinner party.
Yeah. Yep.
And he just talked.
Right.
So I think if I'm a reporter and I'm looking at Greer, I'm thinking, can I trust that this guy's perceptions of his interactions with people are really accurate?
Right.
Well, and I wonder, with all the ramp up on this, did he feel like, oh shit, I need to force this narrative or I'm going to lose it, right? I mean, that's what happens to a lot of good-hearted, true people that end up kind of doing a bit of fraud, is it's spinning it so much to try to make sure your narrative doesn't get lost that you almost end up believing a lot of your own spin and things like that. And it never comes from a place of,
I certainly don't. I wouldn't accuse Greer of fraud. I didn't.
Not at all. Yeah,
no.
I'm not saying that either.
Yeah.
Very much still respect the man.
Yeah, no. And like I said, young Greer, wow, what a guy. That National Press Club thing. Yeah. If only he had stopped a little bit after that, I think we'd be in a good place.
Or at least stuck with that same thought process mentality of pursuing the truth down that avenue, right?
But like we said, I mean, the things that he's seen and things like that became a religious experience for him, so to speak, whether he admits it or not. And that, we all know, especially if you grew up in the church or anything like that, like those religious experiences can change how you feel, because it hits you with adrenaline and emotion and all of that stuff. And it can change your perception and the way you think about it. And
you know what really pisses people off is when you argue with their religious experiences.
Yeah.
That's like such a trigger for people.
Right.
So like, there's this weird overlap where some UFO beliefs are also religious beliefs. Mm-hmm. And again, that doesn't mean that the beliefs aren't true, but it means that, people are looking at them in two different ways.
Oh, I
mean,
so look at those old contactees. I mean, how many of them? I mean, look at Indrid Cold. Like, his whole world, they were Christians. You know what I mean? It's like a number of those. Even Buck, what's his name? Not Buck Owens. Whatever his name is, I can't think of it now. But his was a very religious experience. They believed that they believed in the same God and things like that. Yeah. And so you're like, was that just how you justified it? Like how you figured it out and made it work for your brain? I don't know.
Do you guys think if a Fatima type event happened nowadays that we'd consider it a UFO event?
Probably. I would say we as a world would consider it a UFO event before we would consider it a religious event.
Yeah, that's a big sea change, isn't it?
I never even thought about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Because now, if people see God, they cray. It's switched. It really oh man, you got me thinking now, Ben. Because I'm like, yes, all the religious stuff. I mean, like, when's the last miracle? When's the last time the church has gone out to establish a miracle? We don't see that anymore.
Right. Well, the Vatican is really heavily featured in American Cosmic, Diane Pasalka's book, and you do get the feeling that there are a lot of overlaps between kind of Catholic beliefs and UFO beliefs.
Oh yeah, their astronomy guy is amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Sure is changing my perspective on what the Catholic Church can be.
Well, I mean, the fact that they already have a contactee response, right? If we make contact with intelligent life, they already have a plan for how they're going to respond and how they're going to respond to their believers, right? As to how it fits in with everything that's already going on. Because that's always been a concern, I think, from a lot of people, is it would shatter our world religions if people knew that there were life outside of humanity. But the Catholic Church has already got a plan for that. So
yeah, they are big on continuity, aren't they?
Yep.
I think people are coming around to realize it's not going to have a big effect on religious beliefs. And some of those anecdotes, like the War of the Worlds story that gets told, that people panicked when that first came out. It's, more people are understanding that didn't really happen.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, it happened. It happened a little bit, but not like this huge mass people leaving the cities like we've been told.
We've been over exaggerating the societal threat of people understanding that there might be something in the sky that we can't explain. That's not going to, end civilization as we know it.
I think it's interesting, and I wonder if anybody's ever tried to do a FOA for this, but we have the Brookings report, right? That was an evaluation to say, humanity's not ready and blah, blah, blah. And then there's the further understanding that people use the Brookings report to come up with a plan for how they could get humanity to be ready. And I don't think anybody's ever actually seen what that plan is, but I wonder if that's available via a FOA request. So somebody will put that out there.
Well, I've personally had no luck with FOIA requests myself. I'll have to leave that to John Greenwald and the like.
Yeah. I have sent in a couple and have had no response either. So yeah.
Yeah. I would like to get more involved with that, but it seems like it's like a real art form. Writing those things and responding in a way that's going to get you further toward your goal.
I feel like it's almost like playing the lottery. You have to fire off a bunch of requests and maybe one will pay off. But like I put in a request not too long ago for information for the Murray Island incident. Where the craft or the wormhole opened up and dumped all the stuff in the island and stuff, and in the reports of the incident that I found, it says that the FBI showed up and investigated everything. So it's like, great. So I put in a request to the FBI, asked for everything that they had. I gave dates of when it all took place. The article that I found even named like agents that investigated. So I included all that in my request. I get a response back. The FBI has no information on this particular incident. Please contact the National Archives.
Right.
So, okay.
And maybe if you worded it just slightly differently, you would have gotten a completely different response.
Maybe if I didn't include as much detail, who knows?
Yeah,
but
I think that some of that truth will come out from those records. Some of it never will. We should probably be prepared for that.
I always wondered, so FOIA of course is the ability to ask for information, but if it's still classified, they don't have to give it to you. So they can just say, nope, this is still classified. That would be admitting that the information exists, but it would not be giving you any information. So
they're not going to reveal the nuclear secrets because of a FOIA. Mm-hmm. And I think we can extrapolate from that there's a lot of stuff having to do with UFOs that they would never reveal, even if they had that information. And maybe that's like a wise decision. I don't know.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is say, hey, this is us. We have figured out how to transport machines in 2 seconds, and here's how it's done, Russia.
Yeah.
Well, if you want,
and you also don't want to say it's not us.
Right.
Right, because you want to keep Russia on their toes, right? So, if you really want to, my goodness, the stuff that's available on Google Patents that the government has filed patents for, if you just read those patent documentation, they've got the stuff that we think they have. Because why would you file a patent with detailed specs on things if you don't have it?
I'm going to mispronounce his name, but the Salvatore Pais patents were extraordinary.
Yeah.
And I would recommend the articles on The Drive, I think by Brett Tingley, about those patents. And those are a real mystery. And I think if we understood why those patents were filed, we'd have a much better understanding of what the government is up to right now.
I mean, if you ever want to just, tumble down a rabbit hole, just go to Google Patents and start searching things like interdimensional travel and faster than light speed and all kinds of stuff. And you will come back with patent after patent where the government has filed. There's a patent for triangular craft. There's a patent for, submersible, craft that can fly in both the air and also the sea. I mean, there's all kinds of things out there. And I just find it hard to believe that the government would file a patent for those things and then never actually build them.
But, it's very possible. Just like, we were talking about not wanting to reveal secrets to, our adversaries.
Right.
We also do want to give them bad information.
Right. It could be misinformation. You're right.
Yeah.
Right. Because I feel like anything super secret, they're not going to file a patent for. That's public records. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, so they know it's going to go public. So that must have, been part of their
misinformation. Yeah.
Of their thinking, at least, that they want it to go. It could be absolutely accurate, but they want that information out there.
Right. Yeah. Because sometimes the best is to hide in plain sight, too. So you're like, ugh.
Yeah. So,
when you look at like famous misinformation or disinformation, like the Serpo stuff, what gets me is I sit there thinking, which part of this is true that they were trying to make look stupid? Mm-hmm. Because they wouldn't have gone to so much effort on this, and if it wasn't somehow adjacent to something that they were trying to hide.
Well, what is it? There's a saying that goes, and I don't remember, it's probably quoted somewhere, but the best lie is based on a little bit of truth. And so, how much, like to your point, is a paragraph in that really the truth, and is that truth amazing in itself? So
every single paragraph in the Serpo stuff is pretty amazing, so one of them might be true, and
right.
I think the part of Serpo that we resonates a lot and that you hear about from a lot of different sources is the idea that there was some kind of meeting in the 50s. Like the rumors that it was, Eisenhower met at Holloman Air Force Base,
right,
with some group of extraterrestrials or something.
Valiant Thor and all everything.
Yeah. So maybe some little part of that is true, and the entire Serpo narrative is just in service of making people like me who maybe or maybe have a skeptical mindset just discount
everything that's in it.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast about this serial killer from North Carolina called Pee Wee Gaskins. It was a really good one. It's called Pee Wee Gaskins Is Not My Friend. It's really interesting. This guy's not your classic serial killer where he's like hiding at, and he sneaks and finds people. He more just killed a whole bunch of people that pissed him off, like as kind of, he was known as the meanest man in North Carolina. But one of the things when he was being interviewed by this guy that was writing a book on him, he said, Pee Wee, do you lie? Like how? And he's like, yeah, of course I lie. He says, well, I mean, how do I know what you're telling me is true or not? I said, I lie 50% of the time, because that way you never know, because you've got 50% of verifiable stuff that you're going to verify and assume that the other stuff is also true. But I always keep you on the edge of your toes. So it's kind of like what Josh was saying. It's like, here's 50% truth, 50% lies, and you can't really discern which is which because they flow around each other. Really interesting.
We are attracted to that stuff like moths to a flame.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for
like,
sure.
And like mothman to a flame.
Yeah. But like Rick Doty is still around. Mm-hmm. Rick Doty is still in contact with people whose opinions I'm sure you guys read frequently. Mm-hmm. Because it's like addicting to feel like you have access, even knowing that a bunch of the stuff they're saying is untrue.
Yes, because somewhere there's truth in there.
Right.
Well, yeah, one of the things, talking about Rick Doty, one of the things that I struggle with a lot is, we talked to Kathleen Martin a few weeks back, the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, and talking about that case. And even, reading Kathleen's book and talking to Kathleen, I very much feel like that abduction case happened. The amount of evidence that Kathleen has in her book from the tape recordings and things that for the hypnosis sessions and all that kind of stuff, it's overwhelmingly enough evidence to say that this happened. But then you have Rick Doty, who says, most abductions were government orchestrated events. And so which one is true? Is all of Betty and Barney Hill a government orchestrated event, or was it a legitimate abduction? So
probably we will never be able to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's just, how much of what Rick Doty is saying now is also disinformation.
Well, so what I'd like to do is just take all that information and put it in a part of my brain that I can ignore for 95% of the time. But it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You find that if you expose yourself to stuff, even if it's not true, it affects your thinking.
Yeah.
It's a tough conundrum.
It is.
Are you guys familiar with like Bill Moore, who was a researcher who got caught up with this stuff and knew he was being used for disinformation, but thought, I can make this work. I'm smart enough that I can navigate these waters and, bring the truth to people. But it doesn't work out like that because you're not in the right position to verify. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to say a while ago, and I didn't get an opportunity, but just wanted to go back real quick and talk just for a brief moment about Elizondo and Greer one more time, because we didn't spend enough time talking about them. But one of the things that I think Greer really focuses in on with Elizondo and To the Stars and Mellon is their use of the word threat.
Yeah.
He takes that to mean that they are saying that these alien craft, if they're extraterrestrial, mean us harm. But I don't interpret it that way. I interpret it as they need money from the government. The government is only going to put money into things that are potentially a threat. And so they use that terminology as a means to get money to go research and find out more information. Yeah. So when Lou and them talk about it being a threat, I think it's just because it's a threat because it's unknown, not because they actually think that they're going to come blast us into oblivion.
Sure. But I mean, it's also kind of inherently a threat because any spaceship capable of relativistic speed is capable of destroying our planet. And that's like a pretty horrifying thing to realize.
Yep.
Yeah. But
our biggest fear is of the unknown.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they've been coming for 1,000 years, why wait until now when we have weapons to defend ourselves to attack?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good question.
Right.
I
don't
think
always assuming it's the same species that's been coming for 1,000 years.
Yeah, but still, I mean, if any, why, even if you're coming for 50 years, if you're coming for 40 years, you're coming for 30, I mean, we have only gotten better in our own technology and we only will get better in our defense technology. So what are you waiting for?
Yeah, no, it's true. If I were witnessing our technological growth from an exterior position, I'd be extremely troubled. Right. Even from inside, it's a little worrying, right?
Yeah.
Or they could just
go ahead.
Or I was just make a joke and say, or they could be like, like the Vogons in Hitchhiker's Guide saying, "Hey, sorry, you guys are in the way of our highway." Like, I mean, we assume that they're going to be on the same intellectual level as us and look at us as equals, but they may not. They may just look at us as ants. That this anthill's in the way and needs to be moved.
And just like the Vogons, their intentions could be more cultural than they are scientific or biological. I mean, it could just be that we're really funny to them. It literally could be.
Yeah, we're a zoo is what,
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, I mean, think about how many videos there are on YouTube of cats chasing laser pointers.
Oh, I love
it. That's sometimes I kind of think that's what's going on. We're the cats.
We're the cats.
Yeah. And boy, it's hilarious, right?
Yep.
Oh my goodness!
I wouldn't blame them if I were them. Yeah, I'd be doing that too.
I'm gonna make a T-shirt.
Yeah. I would do the same thing. I get it because I mess with my dog and my cats all the time,
and they love it.
it.
Yeah.
It seems so harmless to us, right?
Right.
But we don't give them any dignity.
I mean, do you think that cats are thinking, where are these laser pointers coming from? Do they mean us harm? Are they a threat? Do we need to file a grievance with the Cat Feline Council and see about getting a study created? I mean,
and we don't even care what they think.
No.
We're like, he's so stressed out.
Like, look, he hit himself against the wall. That's hilarious.
I love like when mine hits one of the lights in the ceiling fan, it splits into two, and my cats lose their shit because they don't know what to do because it turned into two all of a sudden. That's great.
I had a dog that would bark at her own reflection, no matter how many times she saw it, and that's still, that was funny.
Yeah.
I think there's this outside chance that we're dealing with a species that is telepathic and that is able to understand the thoughts of other members of their species. And if that's the case, who are you going to joke around with? Who are you going to, perform practical jokes on? There's no surprise. Yeah. So you might seek out people like us. You might seek out people who are smart enough to realize a joke is being played, but don't have the tools to understand the joke.
Well, and if you, again, to kind of loop it back around, if you go through and you look at it from an ultra-terrestrial perspective, maybe they aren't even here for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's true. It could be E.T. visiting us or visiting Earth to talk to the ultra-terrestrials.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you look at it from an insect point of view, it's
Chains
like,
of the Sea, right?
Hey, I'm here trying to research grasshoppers and crickets, but these ants that happen to be nearby constantly think that I'm here for them, right? That's a way to, I never thought about it like that, but yeah.
No, I think that's a really incredibly disturbing viewpoint, right?
Sure.
Well, yeah, we don't want to think of ourselves as the ants, right? We want to think as we are the most powerful things in existence.
Right.
Nothing can do better than us. So, yeah.
I think that Alexander Wendt really gets it right when he talks about the threat to sovereignty, to the threat to the idea that humans are in control even of our own surroundings. That's what people don't want to face. It's not the religious question. It's not a cultural question. It's a question of, are we in control? Can we go back to a philosophy where we realize, we're not actually in control of that much? And that'll be tough.
Yep, it will be. So, hey, Ben, I want to be respectful of your time.
Sure.
We've been going for about an hour, and it's been a fantastic conversation. Honestly, I could keep it going.
I've really enjoyed talking to you guys.
A couple things I wanted to ask.
Sure.
Do you have, I don't know, like 3 book recommendations for people listening? 3. You got to pick 3.
Sure, yeah. I would recommend Mirage Men by Mark Pilkington, which is a wonderful book about misinformation, and it talks some about the Dodie Benowitz affair that we were hitting on earlier, and I think it gives a really great perspective on what people who want to research UFOs are up against.
Before you move on to your second one, let me ask you a question: the Mirage Men book and the Mirage Men documentary, do they cover about the same, or is there more in the book?
They are pretty similar. Yeah, okay. It's pretty true to the book. But obviously the book is more in depth because that's the format. But yeah, if the movie's really good too. You're probably gotten most of the themes of the book out of that.
Okay.
My second recommendation would be American Cosmic by Diane Pasalka. I think it is one of the most profound UFO books of the last decade. It's really well written. It is more about human predilections for religious beliefs than it is about UFOs. But what it's doing is kind of showing us in context how our beliefs are formed and how those beliefs actually could be helpful to us. So I strongly recommend that one. And boy, a third one. Oh, you know what? I would recommend Encounters with Star People by R.D. Six Killer Clark. And that, I don't know if you guys are familiar with her. She is a really an oral historian in academia. And she put together 4 different books that are oral histories of indigenous peoples in North and Central America, talking from their own perspective about their beliefs and their encounters with what Ms. Clark calls star people. And those are really great, and I think a great way to interact with, or to learn about other people's beliefs in a respectful way that's not, ancient alien style.
Right.
Going to leave you with a bad taste in your mouth.
Right. And then, of course, earlier you dropped Confessions.
Oh, yeah.
By Hastings
And Robert Jacobs. Yeah. I mean, I could give you guys more recommendations, but I'll stop.
Yeah, I'm limiting you to 3. So
yeah. Damn.
I mean, hell, the infographics full of recommendations right there. You can check that out too.
Yeah, well, you might say that those 3 are a trinity of books that are hiding in plain sight. So I just snuck in 2 more recommendations for you guys.
I like your style, man. I like your style. Thank you, sir, so much, man.
Thank you guys for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Love to have you on anytime again, man. Sure. Absolute pleasure, man. Like I said, we could sit and chat all day long.
It's great to get to talk to people who love UFOs.
Yeah, it's a passion.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Fantastic interview. Thank you so much, sir. You guys get to Reddit. Check out the subreddit UFO. If you haven't already, why are you listening to this show?
So I've got it set up. We get email alerts from Reddit for that particular subreddit. There's some other good ones out there, like the alien subreddit is pretty good. And then I also, because I have the Reddit app on my phone, I also get the notifications whenever there's like something really hot that's going on. I get a little, hey, you might want to check this out. So
love that. But get out there, check this man's stuff out. And again, thank you, sir, so much. We really appreciate your time and your insight. It was an absolute blast. But Josh, we gotta get moving on, as we do. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, make sure you are out there sharing, liking this, reviewing this wherever you can. If you review this on Apple Podcasts or wherever there's an opportunity to review, if we don't see it, let us know and we'll send you a free sticker, because that's how we roll. But I do want to get to our final segment, sir. Encounters from the FearScape. All right, so this week's encounter from the FearScape comes from a listener. Another one didn't really want anyone to know where they were from, but from the United States as far as we'll go. But this is a listener named Bethany, and this is Bethany's story.
So I was in the cereal aisle, about 2 feet away from the boxes. I was just pushing my cart slowly, pondering the brands. I came to the Life cereal, which is my favorite, stopped for a sec, and then I remembered how much my grandpa loved that one. And after saying to myself, "Miss you, Gramps," under my breath, I started pushing the cart again. And just as I did, a box of Life cereal fell from its place on the bottom row of cereal right in front of my cart. I picked it up, I smiled, and I put it back in its place. Now, whether or not that was the supernatural, it sure the hell still warmed my heart.
That's awesome. I love that.
That was awesome, though. I'm like, hey, Bethany,
I would have put it in my cart.
Your grandpa wants you to get some Life cereal.
Life cereal, yeah.
He's like, you need to get it.
Just pour a bowl for him and leave it sitting on the counter, you know? So
I love that though. I mean, you know, everyone always thinks the supernatural and everything is spooky and scary and horrifying. But stories like this, like from Bethany, show us the softer side of the supernatural, you know, like we talk about that a lot. Getting visitations, your grandpa showing up a lot, you know, and things like that. These are the parts that people like us are kind of really, I hate to say obsessed, but obsessed with, you know, this proof that there's afterlife there, right? So that we can speak to those that have passed on. And it's like, if I pass on, that's something I want to do. I want to let my loved ones know that I still love them and think about them. And
except like I'll be knocking off Captain Crunch off the shelf. That's what it's, you know, but
right. I'll be knocking off Golden Grams. I get you.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to make it say, though, it's going to say Golden Gramps.
I would have definitely picked up that box of Life cereal though and put it in my cart.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then when you get around the corner, you can put it somewhere else, but you don't want Grandpa to see that. But again, thank you so much, Bethany, for your encounter from the FearScape. Well, not even the FearScape this time, right? But yeah, so thank you for that. But Josh, I want to go ahead and get out of here. I do want to remind everybody again, August 18th is going to be our first live Q&A on Patreon. And to please check out all of our other wonderful podcasts and YouTube shows. We've got a new Astral Stew that's out talking about cryptid mating habits. is the nicest way I'll talk about it. But
definitely an 18+ show on that one. So.
Yeah, for sure. So please check that out and share this with your friends. Word of mouth is the best thing that you can do. But like I said, we out, yo. And you can go to fearscapemedia.com to check out the other podcasts. And I'm rambling at this point. So I'm gonna shoot deuces here and say, hey, this has been Stefan. Keep your eyes on the sky.
This has been Josh. The truth is now.
And remember, folks, hold those blankets extra tight. Things tend to get spooky when you're listening to FearScape. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed this guidepost on the road of high strangeness with us. And we thank you, as always, for listening and joining our caravan to the weird and unknown. Please consider supporting us as we continue our journey to find the answers we all seek. FearScapePodcast.com/support.